for now, I think I want to dive right in because we have our own little dialogue internally all the time, and what I would call the elephant in the room, which is money, right? It's always money. We can say, well, performance is important. We think performance is important. And yeah, well, that's all well and good. We think that everybody should want good response time. I know my wife, who is not technical at all, she's a music teacher, but she hates to wait. I mean, she hates waiting in line. She hates waiting in traffic. When she clicks on something on her computer and her Mac, and she gets what she refers to as the beach ball of death, which is this colorful little thing spinning. And she says, hey, performance guy, what's this beach ball of death business? Well, at least in our business, you can't always make it go away, but you can understand it. You can say, well, why is that? What's the cause of that beach ball of death? What's the cause of the lineup at the grocery store? Is there not enough checkouts? Things like that. Well, in the old days of performance, we were only concerned with, yes, response times and throughput, our batch jobs getting done fast enough. Today, the performance analyst role is, or I'd say should be, broader than that. Frank brought this up the other day. One of the jokes in this area is the definition of capacity planning is where you tell them what they need. The definition of finance is where they tell you what you're getting. And that follows to my definition of performance, is where we try to make things work with what they gave us. Now, Todd has some direct experience in this area from his old job. So before he joined IntelliMagic, I think you even got a Share Best Session Award for this true story. So Todd, why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah, okay, thanks. So in kind of the broad subject here, also the broad topic is, do performance people, should they care about the financial side of things, or even more organizationally, does an organization bring the performance people into the financial side of the discussions? To me, I can't imagine not marrying the two together. I mean, everything you hear today in the industry is, how can we get cost savings? How can we get cost savings, right? And the way the mainframe pricing is, software now is the overwhelming amount of cost, and whatever kind of software license model you're in, it's almost always driven by CPU consumption. So there's a very direct connection between saving CPU and reducing expense, and which is what everybody wants. But to me, to do that, to try to do that job and not understand what drives the software expense, I can't imagine that. I had a wonderful situation, my previous employer, USAA. We were embarking on a software cost reduction initiative, and so yeah, to understand, at that time we were under a 4-hour rolling average model. So to understand what were the factors, what CPU was really driving costs and what CPU wasn't, and then how the model worked. So at that time we had some LPARs that had a more slim software suite because the MSUs were less expensive on that LPAR and all that kind of thing. So anyway, trying to do that job without visibility into what was really, the software licensing side of things, to me would be, kind of like trying to do it with, a blindfold on. And so anyway, we're real successful. We had great executive management support across IT. So the application guys were at the table too, helping with tuning changes, and we saved millions of dollars, and it was a very rewarding effort, and it benefited our company, and it was a great thing to be a part of.
So I think there's an interesting thing there, if I generalize quite a lot, which is you've got to look sideways from just pure performance. And in your example you've given, it's very much about finance. Now, I would say, and I have an acronym for this, which is slightly rude, but never mind, that there are other aspects of what's going on in the shop, which as performance people, if you understand them, make you incredibly valuable to the organization, right? And so the acronym is made out of capacity, resilience, architecture, and performance. Right. So the basic point is you can do a lot of really useful, work that one out, John. You can do a lot of useful work on all those axes from the very same set of data. Now, I will say I've been trying to push that message for 10 or 15 years now, and actually learning as I go, including literally today. So I think we have to view the role as broader than just pure, let's take the narrow definition you started with, John, of response time, and also broader than just, not just, well, you know, finance and stuff like that. So if we view the role as being incredibly nosy about the way things are and why they are and history and stuff like that, I think that makes it, it's one of the reasons why I think it's a very rewarding job to be doing. And I don't know whether that's part of the sales pitch to somebody thinking about doing a so-called performance job, is it could be incredibly interesting and you could be incredibly valuable. I think it probably ought to be.
Yeah. Well, it seems to me like even though we might on the surface appear very different, you know, our role, oh, you guys are the technical propeller heads that look at SMF data and analyze statistics and things like that. And then you have the stereotypical accountant in the boring suit who's doing the books and saying here are our costs, and, but really it is to the benefit of the organization that we get along, that we work together. The vast majority, regardless of the different pricing plans out there, are based on some form of CPU consumption, and whether that's in MIPS or MSUs, it doesn't matter what the metric is. It's based on a CPU. We have access to that data. We can interpret that data, and the finance folks are tasked with dealing with contracts and spelling that out. Jim, I know you have some involvement with that. You wanna chime in with your 2 cents?
It's kind of tough, but yeah, you do have to play the game. But we're at a point right now where I'm so involved in our current negotiations that I really can't say anything.
Oh yeah, no, don't reveal trade secrets, but you're involved in the process in working with the finance side of the house and translating CPU numbers into.
I actually track our usage to turn it into money in terms of how much are we going to have to pay for true up at the end of each year of our ELA contract.
Right.
And that's kind of a good thing to know. You don't want surprises in that area.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to ping Frank. He's sitting there quietly saying, please don't pick on me. So it's like, I can't help myself. Because we did actually get a question, which in the same subject, you know, how do we convince management is the question, that is in their best interest to have a robust performance team that in the long run, a good performance team will save us money. I mean, we're all drinking the Kool-Aid because we all think it's the greatest thing ever, but it's a perfectly valid, fair question. You're managing, you're in charge of all this infrastructure. There are serious costs involved, and you need to be able to quantify that. You know, what do you think, Frank?
Yeah, I think there are 2 aspects to it. One is maximizing the capacity that you have installed and understanding how it works and how it contributes to your bill. I mean, you could spend a lot of time doing an outstanding job tuning a particular workload, and maybe the way your billing metric works, that makes 0 difference to your bill. So you'd be thrilled with the job you've done, and maybe your users will be delighted, but the people that decide whether they're going to replace your colleague when he retires or not, they might say, oh, I'm spending all this money, and look, it has made no difference to my bill. So from that perspective, there really is a correlation between the work you do and understanding how that impacts your bill and communicating that message through to the people that design on headcount, basically. And the other side is, there's a case I was working on recently, and that the customer had decided to basically let their performance team run down. So there's only 1 person left, and they were just swamped. I mean, it's a large, complex shop. There's no way they could keep on top of things. And they ended up, it's a large shop, getting some upgrades, and they paid really tens of millions more for the upgrade dollars, more for the upgrades than they would have done if they had a better configuration going into it and a better understanding at a really reasonably detailed level of how the whole thing works. So, you save about $150,000 a year by not replacing a performance analyst. On the flip side, you spend millions more than you had to spend buying hardware that potentially was really more than you actually needed. So I think there's those two aspects, and you know, while we all enjoy the performance side, but maybe you don't really live, for meetings with our friends in accounting. I think you can be more effective for yourself and for the company if you have at least some understanding of the relationship between what is it that drives my bills, whatever that's worth.
So that's where you spend a little bit of time with the accountant. You might not have a lot in common. Maybe he's drinking wine, maybe you're drinking Guinness, but whatever. You can sit down together, say, explain to me how this bill is calculated, and I can explain to you how these metrics can contribute to that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to recognize that money is what drives the organization.
Yeah.
And if you can speak to people in terms of what it means money-wise, it's much easier to convey that you're effective or not effective. And that if you want to propose a change, if you can show the dollars, it makes it easier to get the change approved.